Hello. In the last video we talked about the modes of the diatonic scale. There are 7 of them, they all have 7 notes, they're all maximally separated, which means the semitones are as far apart from each other as they can be, and it's all wonderful. But there are lots of 7-note scales. Only one of them is maximally separated. There are 7 modes of it, but there's only one structure, the TTS structure gives you those scales. But let's have a look at what happens when we have a 7-note scale that doesn't have to adhere to the concept of maximal separation. Probably the most popular scale after the major scale and all its modes is the harmonic minor. And this is a fruity little fella because we've got a 3 semitone gap, an augmented second in its structure. So starting from, we happen to be on B at the moment, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, augmented second, and then don't forget the extra semitone to get you to the root, back round to the root again. Never forget the wraparound is one of the notes of the scale, one of the intervals of the scale. And the harmonic minor scale gives us one thing that the major scale doesn't have, and that's an augmented triad. So remember when we talked about triads being one of the fundamental components of the diatonic scale, that we have the first, third and the fifth provide the anchor chord upon which the scale sits. Is it a major scale or a minor scale? Well, if the root, the third and the fifth are a major chord, then the scale behind it is also major, and if they're a minor chord, then the scale behind it is a minor. Let's have a look at what happens in the harmonic scale when we try to build triads. Just before we do, got a handy little trick in Guitar Tutor. This simplest keys section down here tells me that if I select the key of A, it's going to use as few black keys as possible for any given scale. If you want a copy of this, by the way, head over to onemaninhissongs.com. You can pick yourself up a copy for free. So let's have a look at the A harmonic minor scale. There's our A on the keyboard behind over here. There's the G sharp. When we play a triad, the first, third and fifth make a minor chord. We have a minor third interval between the first and the third, and a major third interval between the third and the fifth. Let's step up some of the other triads. If we start from B, we have a minor third up to the D, and then another minor third up to F. That's a diminished. From C, we go up a major third to E, and another major third to G sharp. C augmented. That is what doesn't happen in the diatonic scale. Remember that a triad is a 3-note chord, that we base our chord theory on the root, the third and the fifth, and we stack thirds. So we have combinations of major thirds and minor thirds to play with, and that gives us exactly 4 different varieties of chords. A major plus a minor gives us a major chord. A minor third plus a major third gives us a minor chord. A minor third plus another minor third gives us a diminished chord. That's C diminished. And a major third plus a major third gives us an augmented chord, which is C augmented, which we just saw in the scale. That's it. Those are the only 4 triad types you can have. Then carrying on up the scale, we have a D minor, an E major, an F major, a G sharp diminished, and back round to our A minor. So it's a gorgeous sequence of chords. The harmonic minor scale is absolutely beautiful. We can start from any one of those 7 notes and generate a new mode. So the harmonic minor scale has 7 modes, just like the major scale, the diatonic scale if you like. So here is the second mode of the harmonic minor scale, Locrian Natural 6. And again, let's have a look at our simplest keys thing, and it's telling us to play a B. And lo and behold, it's exactly the same notes that we've just played. So there's only one mode of the harmonic minor scale that has a single black key, and the simplest keys algorithm is going to tell us what it is every time we switch modes. So we just went up to the second mode. If we started in A, the second mode of the scale is going to be B. Here it is, B Locrian Natural 6. And so now, because we were rooted in B, and the first and the third are a minor third apart from each other, and the third and the fifth are a minor third apart from each other, so we have a diminished chord on the root. That's just like the seventh mode of the diatonic scale. The seventh mode of the diatonic scale is called the Locrian mode, and here we have the second mode of harmonic minor being called the Locrian Natural 6. That's not an accident. It's because whatever our root note is has a diminished chord hanging off it. From there, we use exactly the same pattern that we had previously. Just jump back very quickly to A harmonic minor. We had, if you start here, dim, augmented, minor, major, major, dim, minor. Dim, augmented, minor, major, major, dim, minor. Exactly the same structure, exactly the same pattern, the same interval sizes between each of the notes. We've just shifted the whole thing along. Started on B, remember span B. We're now in B Locrian Natural 6. We've forgotten our A harmonic minor business of 5 minutes ago. Now let's play this scale. Sounds totally different. Moving up to the third mode, we get C harmonic major. We're starting on C, and we immediately have an augmented chord right out of the gate. So this is going to sound very exotic when we come to play the scale. We've got a D minor, an E major, an F major, a G sharp diminished, A minor, and B minor badly played. Let's see what that sounds like. Here's your root. Pedal it like your life depends on it. Once you feel that you're in C, it's really difficult to resolve this scale because it's got such a dissonant chord on its root. So the major and the minor triads are classed as consonant, and the diminished and augmented triads are classed as dissonant. They don't feel like they've gone home. There's C augmented, there's C diminished, as opposed to, which does feel like it's resolved, it's the ah. Fourth mode is one of my personal favourites, the Spanish Phrygian. Absolutely wonderful. Again, simplest keys tells us that it's going to be D, but we already know that. We're stepping up through the notes. This is the fourth note of the A harmonic minor scale, so it's going to form the root of the fourth mode of that scale. So D Spanish Phrygian has a single black key. And as we carry on round, we're going to get exactly the same story as previously. Phrygian dominant, we know, is going to be based in E. There's the single black key. Lydian flat third, we know, is going to be based in F, and there it is. And finally, we get round to the dominant double flat 7, which is our... See, when I switched from F, it's got A flat here because that's the right note for the key. but as soon as I click on it, it reorients, the Guitar Tutor reorients itself and says, oh, right, now this is what you want me to do. Well, in this context, this is the best I can do. And you can see that the G sharp dominant double flat 7th scale has both sharps and flats in it. It's not a very pretty scale. There's our G sharp, there's our root, and we start immediately with a diminished. So this isn't going to resolve anywhere anytime soon. See what the scale sounds like. Yeah, it's just hanging absolutely out to dry. That doesn't mean it can't be used, it just means it's tricky to use. So you can see that every scale has modes. All you're doing with modes is starting on a different note of the scale each time and saying, well, what will the intervals be if I start from here? And because you've got different numbers of notes in between each of these notes, different intervals between each of the notes of any given scale, if you root yourself there and then travel up 7 times using the same pattern, just shifting the pattern along, then you're going to get a completely different sound. None of those scales in the Harmonic Minor series sound the same. Each of the modes sounds completely different, but they all use the same notes. Now, some of the scales are absolutely ridiculous. Here we've got the enigmatic scale. Very few pieces of music written in this scale because it sounds so dissonant. Joe Satriani actually wrote one called the enigmatic. I didn't know that it was based on a scale until I actually learned the existence of this scale. It's on Not of This Earth if you want to check it out. And it's just a very dissonant, difficult sounding scale to play because it has such ridiculous intervals, and you can see that Guitar Tutor is struggling to make any kind of sense out of it at all. It has to use double flats just to get anywhere near any kind of reasonable musical notation. But the fundamental truth of all of these scales remains the same. You can always build modes from any scale. Whether or not they're going to make much musical sense to you is a different question, because we are still bound by the rules of nature. We're still trying to work as harmoniously, and deliberate pun, as possible with those rules as described. And the major scale is the closest and most harmonious, the most consonant. And the more dissonance you introduce into a scale, then the more challenge you're going to have to make usable music out of it. But that absolutely doesn't say that you can't. Just like Joe Satriani proved, it can always be done. So that's our introduction to modes. In the next video, we'll expand on the concept of triads. We talked about the 4 different flavours of fundamental triad, the 3 note chords, by stacking thirds. But you can stack thirds ad nauseum, and you can get an extremely rich palette of chords by doing so, and that's what we'll talk about next time. I hope you join me then. Thanks very much for watching.